Matthew Stafford is not happy about his contract. The Rams signed a running back. And did the Rams find the steal of the draft? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor and subscribe to Locked On Rams YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button also. Do you think the Rams should guarantee Matthew Stafford more money? Should they redo his contract? Let us know down below. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Locked On, Dodgers Nation, SI, and as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's show, Matthew Stafford wants a new deal. He wants some modifications to his contract. We're going to talk about that. Also, did the Rams get the steal of the draft in Beaux Limmer? We're going to talk about that. But first, this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Travis, we're going to get right into it. Matthew Stafford, who is participating in the Rams OTAs, he's throwing the football, he's looking great, but he does want his contract modified. Ian Rapoport reported that my understanding is Matthew Stafford, while he has been in the building, does want an adjustment on his contract, does want more guaranteed money past this year. He believes he has a lot left, a little bit of a lingering issue this offseason for the Rams. So Matthew Stafford, of course, he signed that 4-year, $160 million contract in 2022. It has $130 million in guaranteed money, but the current contract doesn't have very much guaranteed money on it past the 2024 season. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's pretty simple. This is your quarterback. You got to make him happy. And also, it's a positive sign in that he thinks he has more left in the tank, and he really wants to continue on with Sean McVay in this Rams organization.
This is one of the few times where you hear something about a player's contract and them being, I don't want to say displeased because I don't think that's the right word, but at least concerned about something in their contract, about some numbers that I think is actually very, very good news. I don't think that there's anything in this. This is anything other than a positive development for the Rams. If he's going to the Rams and telling them, hey, look, I want to keep playing. My body feels good. Mentally, I'm in a good spot. My family life is in a good spot that I feel like I can commit to a team for, whatever the number may be, 2 years, 4 years, whatever the extension might look like. That's nothing but good news. Look around the league. Look around the NFC in particular. Matthew Stafford is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They're really hard to find. They're impossible to find in free agency virtually. They have one. Give him what he needs. And when you hear that this is a loose end, I don't think this means that they're at an impasse. I think this means that they haven't figured out exactly how to structure it. That, and I'm just making up numbers here. These are not the real numbers, but, he wants 40 and they have 34 to give. That's not a big big gap to bridge. They will figure that out. But if he's saying, I want to be here, make sure that he gets to stay here, because the window for, what are we talking about, 8-9 years was Aaron Donald. That if Aaron Donald were here, you're going to go as far as Aaron Donald and that defense and his incredible play. We're going to allow you to go on that side. Well, now your window is almost directly tied to number 9. That if he's upright, healthy, committed, mentally and physically, let's go. Let's make it happen, because he's that good of a player still at this point in his career.
Exactly. He's the single most important player in sports as far as the position he plays. He's the single most important player for this organization. Last year, he proved that he can still be an elite level quarterback. He made the Pro Bowl. He threw for almost 4,000 yards, 24 TDs, 11 interceptions. And you saw, if you give him a competent offensive line, he can still go out there and sling it with the best of them. And he's not asking for a new contract. He's not asking for a completely new deal or anything like that. He just wants guaranteed money for 2025 and 2026. 2026. And then after that, then you can talk about a new contract, and maybe he plays until his 40s. Maybe he wants to go for 70+ thousand yards. And as he said, he wants to wear that gold jacket. So I think he's thinking legacy, and I also think he's thinking security. Now, the only issue I have, I guess, would be if you do guarantee that money and things don't work out with the Rams, and he wants to demand a trade, that starts to complicate things when you have guaranteed money and he tries to get traded. But I just think, for me, I always remember, though, Sean McVay, right? He wants to play with Sean McVay. He's happy in LA. I don't think there is a situation where, the Rams are going to put a team around him where he can't have success. So I trust the organization. I trust Sean McVay. And I think Matthew Stafford wants to continue his career in LA. Like I said, I feel really good about it. Now,
I do too.
$1 million.
And I think there's a part of, I know I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating. There are maybe 10 guys on earth that are good at that job. You got one. You got to take care of him, right? There aren't more. There aren't more to go get. There are maybe 10 or 12 guys that are good at this job. You happen to have one. You've already seen what happens when he's playing at his highest level. You go to the Super Bowl. You win the Super Bowl. You win the Super Bowl because he's that good, because he's that tough, because he's that smart, because he's that committed to it. There aren't more. When you have one, you need to move heaven and earth to make sure that they stay happy, to make sure that they stay there. Because if you don't have one, you have virtually no chance. That occasionally, I know there's always the Trent Dilfer and the Brad Johnsons in the world, that there's always one or two people that kind of slide in and say, oh, you can do it. Those are the exception. They're not the rule. Go back and look at the guys that win the Super Bowl. Go back and look at the teams that win the Super Bowl. Almost without exception are high level quarterbacks. If you don't have one, you have no chance. They're almost impossible to find. You have one, take care of him, and then move on to the next thing.
I could not agree more. When you have one of these guys, like you said, there's 10 of them on the planet that can get it done at this level. You move heaven and earth to keep them happy. I've seen people out there saying, well, when Jalen Ramsey wanted more guaranteed money, they didn't appease him. Jalen Ramsey doesn't play quarterback.
No, it's different. That every other position on the field is, you got to make a decision, right? Can you find, look, is Cooper Kupp a great player? Absolutely. Could you find another one? Yeah, probably. You know what I mean? Like, could you find another great corner? Yeah, you can trade for him. You can find. Quarterbacks are impossible to find. At any given time, there's 10 or 12 good ones. You have one. That's it. That's the only position that's like that in sports. Even like in baseball with a pitcher, like, okay, you get the best version of Clayton Kershaw. That guy's not coming around, but he doesn't impact every single game, every single night. He impacts it when he plays. The quarterback touches the ball every time. He makes a decision every time. He's the leader of your team every time. When you got him, pay him.
And I think, too, if you know the Rams, if you know Les Snead, if you know Sean McVay and the relationship and the respect that they have for Matthew Stafford, you know right now this is going to be a non-issue. You know they're going to do whatever they need to do to keep him happy. If you look at his current contract situation, he's guaranteed $10 million in 2025, no guarantee money in 2026. 2025, you're looking at a base salary of $27 million, a $5 million roster bonus. The rest of that is prorated. Same for 2026. Base salary of $26 million, a $5 million roster bonus. The rest is prorated. So I think what you'll see him do is that $10 million probably double to $20 million on the guaranteed. And then the following season could be $26 million if he's on the roster in early March, something like that. He's going to be happy. Everything's going to be fine. You said it best, Travis. You got a Super Bowl winning quarterback. You make him happy by any means necessary. Yep. And then you can talk about winning a Super Bowl. But also, he's at OTAs. He's throwing the football. It's nothing serious. They're not going to play hardball with Matthew Stafford.
Not a chance. They paid Aaron Donald when it was time to pay him. They kind of did the thing, which everybody does. That's fine. There was never a chance he wasn't coming back. There was never a chance he wasn't getting paid. They got it done. They went and won. Same thing's going to happen with Stafford.
And honestly, I'm not like comparing him like apples to LeBron James, but it almost feels like maybe after this, we're going to be, oh, wow, 2 or 3 more years of Stafford. Maybe we see 2 or 3 more than we thought we were going to get with Matthew Stafford, just because the guy can still play. And we've seen with Tom Brady and guys like that, you can still be effective at that position in your 40s. And he's got the arm to do it. It's just about staying healthy. But coming up next, we're going to talk about a player the Rams drafted that could be one of the steals of the draft. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a whole lot more. So whether you're into speed, whether you're into power or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And when you're done making sure that your ride or die stays alive, why don't you drive it to a game, right? Because what's going on right now is we got NBA playoff action. We have NHL playoff action. And look, if you go to games, they're always fun. But what about a playoff game? It's a whole nother level of excitement. So you got to get your tickets, right? Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app, they actually go down the closer you get to tip-off. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying your NBA tickets. Just go put the Game Time app on your phone. Trust me on this, because here's what you're going to see. You're going to see great deals all over the place. You don't have to get way ahead of the game. You can actually be kind of comfortable procrastinating until that very last minute, because Game Time is going to take care of you. You're going to see the view from all the seats in the venue, lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, all of the great stuff. So you are covered, right? You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, just about everything in your area. So take the guesswork out of buying your NBA tickets, playoff tickets, with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, Game Time app, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those every listeners out there and the new listeners out there. And you can join that Every Listeners Club. Membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Now, Travis, here in our second segment, we're going to talk about a potential steal in this draft. ESPN NFL draft analyst Matt Miller, he listed Beaux Limmer, center out of Arkansas, as one of the best values found in this draft. The Rams picked him up in the 6th round, 217th overall, and yet 18 centers listed on NFL's big board. He was the 4th highest ranked. He can play all 3 interior offensive lineman positions. He's strong. We'll talk about his measurements here in a second, but this is some serious value that the Rams got in one of the later rounds.
Look, anybody named Beaux Limmer is a guy that I'm excited about. It sounds just exotic and awesome all simultaneously. So I'm a Beaux Limmer fan right here for sure. Look, it kind of speaks to where they are. They needed to shore up the defense, so they went heavy defense. What was it? 4 of their first 5 picks were on that side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball. But I think that you see a pick like Limmer is them kind of doubling down on something that I expect them to be very good at this season, which is offensive line play. We know that the interior of that line is going to be very good. We know that you have Havenstein out at the right side. Lark Jackson obviously is the one part of this that I don't want to say question mark, maybe a little strong, but at least maybe the part that you're most concerned about. But what Limmer does is it gives you a lot of flexibility. It allows you to move guys all over the line if need be. Last year, thankfully, Rams were pretty healthy on the offensive line. There weren't a ton of moving parts. But go back the year before that, and you had a catastrophe up front. And having guys that can play a lot of different positions, that can go from outside to in, and a guy like Limmer who can play all 3 interior positions, it's an incredible luxury to have guys that can do so many different things.
Yeah, first thing I have to go back to the name. If I told you his name was Beaux Limmer and I asked you to guess the conference he played in, your first guess would have been the Southeastern Conference, right?
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
most SEC name ever. Beaux Limmer, and he started all 4 years at Arkansas. He brings versatility, and he can play center, he can play guard. He was widely considered to be a fourth-round pick, and he did fall. Some of his technique and some things you want to polish up led to him falling a little bit. But I think for me, this means two things. One, you mentioned the first one, you can never have enough depth at the offensive line position. And he has versatility, and he can play guard, he can play center, provide some depth. But also later, after Jonah Jackson leaves possibly down the road, what can you do? You still have a young Steve Avila. You can put him back to guard and have him play center. So it gives you some optionality in the future, and you get young, you get guys with a lot of potential. But for me, you have to really start with his measurables and just how he performed at the NFL draft. 39 reps on the bench, 39 reps
Crazy.
On that 225. That was the most by any offensive lineman. If you look at his vertical, 36.5-inch vertical, you had a 1.75 10-inch split. I mean, this guy was extremely athletic, had a 9.79 RAS score, which is basically his relative athletic score, measures a lot of things. That was 34 out of 1,583 guards from 1987 to 2024. So this guy's very impressive athletically, and it's just about developing him in this system. And you have the patience, too. You don't have to throw him into a starting role, anything like that. So a little bit of a project that the Rams can take advantage of.
Yeah, that's it, right? So you have this raw material, this incredible athlete who maybe doesn't have the most refined technique in the world. Put him in an environment where you don't have to play him a ton right away, and you can go to work on the technique, right? I can't teach you to be faster beyond a certain point. I can't teach you to be stronger beyond a certain point. I can teach you technique. I can teach you scheme. I can teach you how to get through an NFL game with tactics, right? If the raw material is there, I'm optimistic about being able to coach up the rest of it. I think the other way is much harder, where technique is perfect, where all these other things, but you're a step slow. You're not quite that just naturally strong the way that some people are more than others. That's a much harder thing to fix. And again, it's a 6th-round pick. So if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. It's not like you took a big swing early or took him, like you were saying, 3rd or 4th round, where maybe he might have been projected. It's high upside, very low risk, and I think that's what you're looking for in the 6th round.
Yeah, I like what the Rams tweet out. They tweet out, winner, Beaux Limmer. I mean, he's going to lend himself to great social media copy. Yeah. But look, I planted my flag after they drafted Puka Nacua. Okay. I'm doing it with Beaux Limmer. Okay, I think this is the football gods smiling down on us after they did us dirty a couple years ago at Creed Humphrey, right? This is them doing us a solid, giving us a starting level player in the 6th round. It's not going to be year one like Puka Nacua, but I think down the line, he's a name that you're going to hear, and he's going to be a part of this Rams future up front. But coming up, the Rams sign another running back, and we're going to talk about this running back room, what it means for guys like Zach Evans and Ronnie Rivers. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about Monopoly Go, right? But there's just way too much good stuff in the game. I got to tell you all over again. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. And the more you win together, the more awesome prizes that you unlock. And there's a lot more to get, right? Like unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges, a ton of their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it right now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Travis, here in our third segment, the Rams have made a signing according to Adam Schefter. The Rams have signed former Eagles running back Boston Scott to a one-year contract. So they add another running back to this mix. You drafted Blake Corum. You have Kyron Williams. This is a running back that has made his bones in this league as a solid third down back. He can catch passes out of the backfield. So definitely gives them a little bit of a different dynamic. If there's one knock on Kyron Williams was you saw some missed catches, some drops out of the backfield, but just some more depth at the RB spot.
Yeah, and I think that this is them hedging their bets a little bit on Williams, not just from, pass catching abilities like you're talking about, D-Mac, but health. I think this is why they took Blake Corum where they took him. I think this is the signing of Boston Scott, that Kyron Williams, no one is saying, I don't think he can play. He absolutely can play. He's a really good NFL player. We saw that last season. The knock is, how often is he going to play? And is he going to go down again? And if so, where do we go from here? We saw it last year, right? Cam Akers didn't really work. We've seen Darrell Henderson. We've seen Ronnie Rivers. We saw Royce Freeman. We've seen some of these other guys that aren't nearly at that level. We'll see what Corum looks like in the NFL. I'm very optimistic on that. I think he could be a really good player. But Scott gives you a third layer. Scott gives you a guy that, like you said, has been in the NFL, has had success in the NFL. You know that the ability is there. It's just more of a safety valve than anything else. And I think more than anything, it's a hedge against Williams' health.
Yeah, Scott's a good player, and I think you're absolutely right on that, is that you're giving yourself depth. You invested heavily in this offensive line. You want to have as many options as you can have. And look, 71 catches for 566 yards in the last 6 years of 4.3 yards per carry. This is a legitimate guy that in his role has had success. But first thing that I said was, okay, Zach Evans, it's going to be difficult to make this team. Ronnie Rivers, it's going to be difficult to make this team. And they took Zach Evans last year in the 6th round out of Ole Miss. You thought that he was a high upside guy. People were mentioning him as a steal of the draft. And it just shows how quickly just a year goes by and, hey, we're on to the next guy.
Well, look, this is what's so hard about being a player that's drafted later in the draft. Like once you're past maybe the 4th round, if it doesn't hit, I'm not invested in making you hit. If I take you in the 1st or 2nd or 3rd round and it doesn't hit, let's try it again. And if it doesn't hit the 2nd time, let's try it again, because I need to be right with those picks. Whereas lower in the draft, if it doesn't hit, all right, let's bring in a new guy and see what happens there. I think what's interesting too, to kind of spin this forward a little bit, is with the new kickoff rules, the new special teams rules. Like what is a modern special teams player going to look like? Right. It's such a different ask than what it's been in the past. And who plays special teams? Backup wide receivers, backup running backs, backup defensive backs, backup defensive line. Like these are the guys that make up your special teams units. And what are the skill sets that we're going to need when all of a sudden we're just kind of chipping it over that return line? I don't know. And I think that's really interesting to figure out what that's going to look like. And maybe having more guys like backup running backs helps your special teams units, and you need a little more. I would imagine that has to be part of the decision-making process on how you build out your roster, is just how different special teams are going to be.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You're seeing the player profile just change because of the rules, just because teams just aren't taking advantage of that. And I think that's something that is irking the NFL at the moment, because they don't like any wasted plays. They don't like any wasted action. I think you'll see something modified in the coming years, because that's just what the NFL does, to their credit. They're like the anti-baseball. They're the antithesis of Major League Baseball, who has to wait like 10, 15, 20 years. NFLs or something, they'll do it in a year. They'll do it in an off season, right? And to your point about the investment they have in later round players, you're right. Of course, GMs, they're not going to lose. They might get a new contract. They might get an extension, a new job if they hit on 5th and 6th round picks. They're not going to lose their jobs when 5th and 6th round picks don't work. So absolutely couldn't agree with you more. But I think, look, Sean McVay, there's something cooking with the running game, and there's something cooking with the offense. I'm really excited about it, because you have a great quarterback, and you could say to yourself, okay, we want receivers. We want Matthew Stafford over 5,000 yards, but they know he can throw. but they know he's best with balance. And I think that what they've done to just kind of adapt in just one season has been extremely impressive. And I couldn't be happier about the vision of this offense with this organization. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And of course, you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.